you so much for making the time to come and talk to us, and we're all very excited. Um, as you may know, this is a room full of novelists. Primarily, there's some memoirs amongst us, and of them, a few of them are also authors of yours. That's how you came to my attention. I think that Melora was the first of my writers who told me that you picked up her book, and then in quick succession after that, it was Elizabeth Kemp, and,
Valerie.
Valerie Saul, who's coming out, is also one of us, and anyway, quite a few others, and then also we have writers amongst us who are involved in other groups as well, who also see lots of activity from Sybilline Press right now with all these groups. So everyone's super
Very nice.
interested as to what's going on. But before that, I want to start for those of um, you out there who don't know who Julia is and didn't get around to Googling her. Let's just set the scene by saying that. So, Julia Park Tracey is the executive editor of a press called Sybilline Press, which part of the conversation tonight is to find out exactly what Sybilline Press is. And also, Julia, you are an author. You've written several historical fictions, and you just launched one on November 14th called Whoa, Nelly, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Put up your book cover at this point. Ah, congratulations. So we're going to talk
Thank
a
you
little
very
bit about
much.
that as well, and about how all these things interweave into one career, and into the insights that you can give us about the publishing industry right now. So, where I'd like to start is, so you're an author and you're an editor, and we were talking earlier about how you and I have some like parallel life bits. And that's one of them. I used to own my own press, Goose Bottom Books. So I was the executive editor. I called myself head goose, but I was the head goose then. And so executive editor then, and also an author, had been an author before I started the press. So I kind of thought, oh, I don't know, very many people who are doing both at the same time. A lot of friends,
Right.
authors, and then editors, or vice versa, but to do both at the same time. So I wanted to talk about that, but I wanted you to start by you taking us back to that moment where you intersect with Sibylle. So at that time, like, did you?
Let us go back. Well, so I'm a career journalist, so I've sat in the editor's chair for many, many years in at glossy magazines, at literary magazines. I was the editor of Survivor Lit. I was the editor of Red Hills Review. I read for a number of other publications. I was associate editor at Alameda Magazine, at Oakland Magazine, and then basically every newspaper in the Bay Area. I took a turn either at the editor's desk or as a freelancer in some way, shape, or form. Um, and I'm sure you'll find that when you become an editor, you become a better writer, partly because you see other people's mistakes and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or you get like really annoyed about other people making mistakes. So you learn pretty quickly what works and what doesn't work. Um, so I come from an editing background. However, as a journalist, um, journalism will kill you. It really will because it's all adrenaline and chasing after stories and trying to, competitively get ahead of other people. And even if you say, you know what, we're not daily journalism, we're not doing a daily, post about it, but you're still doing analysis. So if you can't be the first, at least you can be the best, so there's still a competition. And I'm addicted to adrenaline. I absolutely love that. Not the kind where you jump out of airplanes and race cars and motorcycles and none of that. No bungee jumping, none of that. But a good
That's the stuff I
story.
love.
Oh, yeah, yeah, go for it. Anyone else, go ahead of me in line. I'll hold your jackets and your drinks. But a good story, like, ooh, I have scooped the New York Times on stories where they got their story idea from me a couple times, and I was like, now the New York Times is kind of losing their gloss, but back in the day when it was really something and they had did a story after I had done it, I was like, yes, this is it. This is the good stuff. Um, if you are an adrenaline junkie where you're on deadline all the time. And if you don't have your work lined up and have kept on top of it, and if you get to work and you haven't made a lunch or haven't had breakfast, you will find that it is 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and all you've had is like 6 cups of coffee, and you have not had a pee break, and you haven't had any water, and you've had handfuls of M&Ms, and your blood sugar starts to do stupid things and you start getting sciatica from sitting all the time. And and it's like by the time I was hitting 40, when I hit 45, I was like, I need to stop doing this. So I did shift and you know, try to back off of the daily. And anyway, more and more editing. And I had a couple of books that I had worked on at that time. So I kind of gradually made the shift over to books, but I really come from that environment of I have a net and there's a story and I'm going to get that story and make it the best or the deepest or the widest or whatever it is, the widest or the broadest. And so I come from that side of it.
So when you say that you shifted towards books, you're talking about shifting towards editing books, not writing.
No, I'm shifting toward writing them because it's a slower pace than
Mm-hmm.
chasing stories for it used to be, I used to do weekly journalism, or monthly journalism, but the internet is a whole different,
Right.
shebang. So trying to figure out the social media, trying to figure out the schedule of all that. So that's kind of where my background is from. I
So,
wrote, I had a novel that came out in 2003, small press. I mean, the same publication, the same place that was putting out newspapers wanted to do books. They said, you have a book, let's do your book. It went nowhere. But that's okay. It was good experience to learn how to, try to promote a book with no marketing, no backing. I produced two later. I self-published two books of women's diaries when my great aunt passed away. So I kind of got into the historical research, and these were basically like women's studies type books. Again, not a huge market for that, but I learned a lot about putting a book together that way. And I was really trying to not be like, I'm self-published. I was really trying to say, look, this is a real book. It has real research behind it and I do know how to write. So, trying to get it out there and a specialty niche thing. This is really before not the social media world was just starting to take off, say 2009, 2010. So I was doing stuff on Facebook about it, but just kind of building my way up. And then because I had heard that it's really about niche. If you can get in the right niche, you write a book, you get in the right niche, and money will rain down on your head. Well, that is and is not true. It is and is not true. But I wrote a couple of not young adult, but new adult romances with basically the formula of hot sex every third or fourth chapter, like chili pepper hot sex, and a story which was based on a journalist. So I wrote these two books. Veronica Lane Gets the Scoop and Veronica Lane Has a Nose for News, both of which are old-timey newspaper expressions. Um, and they did pretty well. I was with Book Trope at the time, and then Book Trope they also republished my first book, Tongues of Angels. So I had three books with them, and then they said, "Oh, we're going bankrupt. Bye." And they closed the door, and all my books went out of print. So I said, "Okay." So I have three books. I just put them back in the drawer and went about my business. Years pass, and all of a sudden, a lot of things happened. I was married. I had our son passed away. My mother-in-law passed away. We were burnt, chased away by wildfires and a flood. We had all kinds of drama in like 2019, 2020. We bought another house, moved, and was slowly polishing some other work. I had written this book about one of my ancestors, historical fiction. I have two historical fiction books that I had worked on off and on over about 10 years and was getting nowhere with agents, with I wasn't really even applying directly to publishers. I submitted to 175 agents and was at a couple who were like, yeah, this is amazing. This is stunning. I was at the Squaw Valley Community of Writers, which is now just the Community of Writers. And I had agents they were like weeping into their beer. They're like, this is the best thing I've ever read in my entire life. And then ghosted, absolutely ghosted. So after like 2 years of trying to submit, we are in August of 2022, and Vicky DeArmond, who is, pretty well known in the Bay Area, she says, I really kind of want to, I have a memoir I'd like to publish. I would like to get back into publishing. What are we going to do? And I said, why don't we start our own one? Because I can't seem to get through. And it had coincided with menopause and becoming invisible, not being able to. I mean, I had applied for jobs and wouldn't get called back. And I'm like, this is a $20 an hour job. I have sat in the editor's chair at so many places and I can't get a call back. What is it? It's just the fact that there's a 19 in front of my birth year. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what is it? So we after 2 years of this kind of a struggle, we both were just at the end of our ropes with kind of the publishing world and said, what if we try to do this on our own?
Wait,
So
wait,
we,
wait, let me stop you there. So,
yes.
but I think you skipped ahead a little in that you said, well, Vicky's really well known in the area. How did you know Vicky?
Oh my God. So, okay, so this is totally, totally deep background here. Vicky and I met in San Francisco in 1983 when I left my little town of Petaluma to go to San Francisco State and become a journalist, big time journalist I had my little blue zipper bag with the X-Acto knife and a non-reproducing blue pencil in it. And my color reduction wheel, my grayscale, and my pica pole. I had all those things in my little zipper pouch and went off to journalism school. And I got a job at Stonestown in a restaurant, and she was waitressing, and I was the hostess. So that's where we met, and so we have been friends since 1983. So that's what, 42,
That's great.
43 years, a very long time, both through having children, raising children, two divorces, one of each of us, and so on and so on. And just like through everything. Kids are all grown up now, weddings, you name it. So I've known her forever. And periodically we would do things together. When she was in Santa Rosa doing women's events like the Women's Expo, where she would get people to come and talk. I was doing all her social media. But way back in the late 80s, I was doing research for her first book for Foghorn Press about the 49ers. She gave me a roll of dimes and I went to the library and I made photocopies while I had my baby on my hip. I was doing photocopies, or they weren't called that. They were sort of that
Mimeographs.
weird thermal paper that comes out of the the
Right.
microfiche. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, so I did research for her, and I had edited actually a few drafts of books that they were looking at. So she and I have just come back and forth and worked together and not worked together, whatever, just over the years. And
So
you
then
know,
jumping you back forward again.
okay,
And so now you're at the point where you're like, okay, we each have a book that we want to get going. We're tired of this publishing thing. Let's
right.
let's do it. Let's be publishers. I
So
started
what do
from
we
that
what do we need
chair.
to do
So
that? What are the ways to be successful at running a publishing company? Well, you need an editor. So I'm going to edit. I'm going to edit everything. I know how to edit everything. And as a practice, we'll practice on my book. So I have this is the attempted hardcover. We tested out papers on my novel. We did all different kinds of things to figure out what exactly we were going to do. We tested all the printers, what's the paper style, what's the fonts. There's some really weird copies of this book, at my house and at Vicky's that where we tested things. So you get to be the guinea pig when you do this kind of thing. It's
were
not
you
like I was definitely the guinea pig for this.
were you printing on demand at that time or were you going offset?
Yeah, we actually, yeah. Mostly we do print on demand. I will tell you, our first season was fall of 23. right as two horrific things happened. One is UPS went on strike, and the other thing was the SAG-AFTRA actors writers strike. Those two things hit us like knocked our legs out from under us. So we did a couple of big print jobs of The Bereaved so that we would have them for when I launched, and they're printed with an error in them. One of the dates says 1960 instead of 1860 in a chapter heading, and we couldn't like there was no sending it back. It was just we were stuck. So our first season, I was the first book out, out of the block, and we have all these little things that I'm like, oh my God, it's not all glamorous at all. But I had the knowledge of editing. Vicky had the knowledge of the publishing world. Alicia Feltman is our incredible artist who does all of the branding, website, lots of the stuff, the back end of the blog and all that kind of stuff, and all of the artistic covers, posters, you name it. She does all of the art. And then our fourth partner is Anna Termini, who is in Connecticut. Her office is in Connecticut, so she's very connected with the New York publishing scene and goes to lunch with people all the time. And she sells our rights, licensing. She's got our audio deals for us. She's shopping around large print books for us. So all of our authors have access to her know-how. She's been doing it for 40 years as well. So she has friends at Pixar and all the different studios.
Is she like I mean, is she a consultant or is she one of the four partners?
She's one of the four partners. Yeah, we're all in partners, and yeah, so she knows people at all the different locations, and she has helped get us our authors on various TV shows. She's helped us. She's got a little something going that's something in the works with Hulu. She's got a little something in the works with it's not Pixar, it's the other one. It's DreamWorks. So there's things
Mhm.
happening, but they take a really long time. It when the SAG-AFTRA strike or the writers' strike took place, all of the contracts that were out and being considered at the time, they all invoked their force majeure clause, which means they don't run out. They get bumped ahead until the entire strike is over. So it has taken us a full other year behind that to get back onto the radar of any of those people. So this is some of the back behind the scenes stuff that you don't see. You're just like, I'm in a bookstore and I have a book, but all this other stuff where the real money is in licensing your books, and you want someone who has those connections. I don't know anybody in Hollywood. I don't know anyone who writes screenplays except a couple of people who want to write screenplays, but I don't know any of the big players. And Anna knows all these people. So it's
Mhm.
worthwhile to have someone like that on your team and
Mhm.
have her making some really interesting deals for us, which we love.
Okay, so
Okay.
the four of
So,
you get together, right?
yeah,
The
we get
four of you get
together, we
together.
talk about it. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, and so you came out, well, I'm presuming from day one, you came out with this vision that your mission was going to be to publish just women over 50. Is that
that's
correct?
right. That's right. Yeah, we're really just here to hold up all the women 50 and older. So that being said, we're not a pay for play. We're not a hybrid. We're really acting from the traditional publisher model where we sell through bookstores. We're not trying to like, let's see how we can get some more money out of these, hapless authors who, don't know what they're in for. We'll just say, oh, yeah, we're publishing your book, but we're just going to get more and more money. We're going to charge you more money for this and charge more money for that. And that's what hybrids and, self-publishers end up doing is they end up charging the author, and the author is the money source. For us, we want to sell the rights. We want to get out in front of the booksellers associations. We want to go to book festivals. We want to be out there in front so that people
Oh,
will buy books. That's our main.
okay, so let's examine that. So what is your proposition to authors then? I think that every single ear in this room has just now perked up. Are you are you offering the
They
standard?
weren't listening before. What? So, so, so
Okay,
ask me
the
the question. I'm
offer.
not quite sure what the question is.
Okay, I'll ask you a series of questions. So step one.
Yes.
So do you offer a standard advance against royalties deal?
No, we do not. This is what we do. So, as I was just saying, we are a traditional model, but the traditional publishing has really changed. Part of it is the pandemic, part of it is the internet and Amazon. It has changed a lot since the 1980s and 90s when Vicky was doing her publishing company, and since I have worked with various publishers along the way. Traditional publishing in some ways has changed a lot, and in some ways is still back with Gutenberg's movable type. You know what I mean? Gutenberg's press and trying to figure out, how to turn this ship around. So in some ways, publishing is very slow, very New York centric, very much, so some things are fast and some things are slow. So what we have decided to do as a publisher is small presses generally do not have money to promote. Big publishers do, but they don't spend their money equally. They kind of let the books get going and see who's pulling ahead, and then they throw a bunch of money at that. So, or if you're someone like, oh, I'm Kim Kardashian and I would like to sell my, here's a memoir that I wrote. Well, you're already famous. So if you have a huge platform, you're already famous, the big publishers, big five publishers are delighted to, usher you into their living room. So, but other people who are writing memoirs, it's really hard to get picked up by, the big publishers and so on. So in any case, these small presses don't have a huge amount of money to spend on marketing. Around 5% is about what most small publishers have. Big publishers, I'm talking about the big five, they are spending approximately 12% of all of their expenses is on marketing of all the books. And that doesn't mean it's split evenly amongst the books. It means they're spending a lot of money on a couple books. And you go with a big publisher, you're probably going to have to hire a publicist. You're probably going to have to hire someone to help you with your social media or your publicity. Aside from them, they're not going to pay for it. They might have given you an advance, but they're not going to pay for these things for you. So 20 years ago, they would send you a limo and they would fly you all over the place and all that. And now they're not doing that in the same way they used to do. With that in mind, we decided at Sybilline that what we would ask for is a co-op for the marketing portion. So we ask our authors to pitch in some money for the marketing. We're not asking them to pay to be edited. You can't buy your way in the door. We have a very rigorous, I'm a gatekeeper about who gets to come through the door. I'm not taking stuff that's not well written or that, my uncle knows your brother, and so I want my book published. Just none of that. It's very much like I really want the highest quality of stuff that comes through. And we figure that women at this stage in their life, we are ready to spend some money on ourselves. We are ready to, I'll get a good mani-pedi instead of doing it myself. I will hire someone to clean my house because I'm sick of cleaning the corners. By the time you get to over 50, there's a lot of things you're not willing to put up with anymore. And so spending money on yourself is a little bit easier when you don't have small children around, around your feet and so on. And we know that you can't start publicizing your book the day it comes out. It is a long runway. It's a year to 2 years of gracing the tracks, getting out ahead of the book festivals, getting your ads into Publishers Weekly, into Forward Reviews, into Kirkus, all of the things that have to be done ahead of time. So when you pop out, you pop through the paper like a tiger, right? Hi, I'm here. Here's my book. All this stuff is already out there and it has been done months in advance. And I hate to tell you, but everything costs money right now. It costs money to do. Some bookstores are charging for author events. They won't agree to host an author event if you cannot guarantee 50 to 75 people and books sold. I mean, some of us, it's like, I don't even know 50 to 75 people. So I can't guarantee that everyone I know is going to be there and buy a book. I have been at events where I sold like three or none, right? Or I traded, with someone that was it. I can't go to a bookstore. For example, Book Passage is very persnickety about about doing book events, and they want a guaranteed return And there's a fee to use the bookstore for your events. So if that's a little bit of money there, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that this book co-op that we ask the marketing co-op is that we spend on those kind of things. So we're not going to do a ticker tape parade, although we have purchased the Times Square billboard, up in lights, your name and your picture and whatever for some authors who wanted to do that. We have done that. We have done T-shirts for people, so that everyone in the audience is wearing One Bad Mother, for the memoir that we had of that name.
Mm.
We do all kinds of
Before
different
we,
things with the money. Mhm.
yeah. So just so I don't lose track of this.
Right.
So you're doing all of this marketing for which the authors chip in. There's no advance. There's not no
There's no
advance.
advance. No, no, we're not giving
So
money. What we do,
in
we
that
are
case, what is the proposition to the author? What do they get back in royalties that in any way kind of
they get a 50% royalty until that money that they've chipped in is which we what happens is um we put in our half and they put in their half. So if we asked you to put in 3,000, we've put in 3,000, right? Or we asked you to put in 7,500, we also put in 7,500. We equal that so that what Sybilline spends on marketing is closer to 30%. So we're spending way more than a lot of the big publishers for sure, and definitely the small publishers. We're spending way more than they are because we really want our books to be noticed. And I will say that our books do get noticed. People see us, people are like, I see you everywhere. I hear about you everywhere. We've had articles in Publishers Weekly. Our books are being selected for awards. There's a lot of that happening. So the author will get 50% back on everything until that loan to yourself is paid back. It's just really just a loan to yourself.
does
So,
so they get 50% of the retail price of the cover price?
yeah, it sells for this is not my area. I'm not the publisher, so I might have the exact part of what they're getting back. But whatever the money that comes back to us, because say we spend the book costs $15, five of that ends up going to the distributor, and three of that is for printing costs. And so whatever's left of that, right, is how it kind of works.
Mhm.
Um, but what we just split it with the author until it's paid back. And normally, I believe it's for ebooks, it's 25%, but it's 50-50. Normally for paperback, we don't do hardbacks, but normally for paperback, an author gets, I think, 12%. But if they sell a certain amount, then I think it might go to 15%. That is the normal. That is pretty normal across the industry. But for us, it's 50% until you get your money back. So
And
we
then it adjusts to
then it will adjust downward and at that point, you'll be getting your 12 or your 15, however many you've sold,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And so one good deal, like one movie, wipes that out immediately. One kind of a deal like that. We have sold the audio rights for all of our books in advance. So that will put 75 or 750 or 1,200, kind of depending what book it is. It kind of depends what book it is, but roughly we get say $1,500 to $2,500 back from the audio people as an advance. So that will come back to you right away. And then what else do we get? It just depends where your book sells. If there's, you know, various right sales. One of my books just sold to a Mexican publisher. So I get whatever that chunk is plus royalties. So for every audiobook, for example, you sell, once you've earned out your $750, then you get whatever the $2 or whatever it is on top of that for each audiobook.
mhm,
So
mhm.
this is a little nitty gritty. I'm not the contracts person. I am the acquisitions person and I do social media. So I don't try not to quote me too deeply on all of that, but that's
Yeah.
generally the
But
way
it
we do
gives
it.
us a general shape as to what
Right.
it was, what you guys are offering all
Right.
and stuff.
Right. So I know it's like, oh, you're not giving an advance. We have done special situations where there's a book that we want desperately, like desperately. And we have done situations where we've maybe traded work, where we've had someone do some editing for us without having to put the money down, or you know what I mean? Or we've
Mhm.
worked out, we have done some special things, and because we're small, we can do that. It just kind of depends. And maybe, or maybe you have three books that are, all connected, a series. And so maybe what we do is we just have you pay for one book, that co-op. But by the time the second book is out, we've helped you build your platform. There's no need, to kind of add more money to that. See what I'm saying? I hope
Mhm.
that makes sense. Because a lot of our authors come to us, this is their first book, or, are women over 50, they've been busy doing all their um, they've been taking care of their families and so on. They haven't had the chance to really promote and build their own platform. Now they have a little bit more time, and they can spend the time, spend the money, spend the what have you on themselves.
Mhm.
It's not for everyone, don't get me wrong. I
Okay.
realize it would be lovely to have the limo show up and to have the big, uh, have a big fat check. And I know lots of authors who've never earned out their advances, and so they never see another check. They never see a royalty check ever. And their books don't get promoted. They get dropped off. The book is published, it's very beautiful, and no one ever hears from it. So,
Right.
um, you know,
It's the industry. It's a roll of dice either way you go.
it is. And I
I
saw someone asked about, oh, what's the return on if you get a New York Times or New York Times Square uh, your name up in lights, right? That is the problem with marketing, is there is literally no quid pro quo. You cannot guarantee that this will work or that will work. Sometimes it is the zeitgeist of the moment. Sometimes you just got to catch the wave and be on top of the wave when the wave comes. Nobody knows what it is, because if there was a formula, we would all be using it. Guaranteed, guaranteed. So we do what we can. We try to lay out the track so that this book is going to glide along. We have a book that, I thought, yeah, it's kind of too much about an issue. I don't know if this will really sell. It's about an issue. And I really feel like books are about people, not about issues. They really need to have some kind of human element to it. And I wasn't sure this book really didn't do that as strongly as I would have liked. And I'm gobsmacked to find that this book is selling really, it's about the homeless, and the homeless organizations are buying this book by the case. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. And it just goes to show you, it's just like certain things catch. You don't know what's going to catch until it catches. And that's why the big publishers are sort of throwing money, throwing money at various different books, and some do well and some don't. And we're trying to find a different method and not be stopped by the old traditional way, and not be stopped because you're over 50, and you haven't done anything before, that's not going to stop us. We're trying to find ways to
so
help all of these gals be successful.
I'm going to jump in there just for a sec because we actually had a question from Carol Stivers, who's not with us tonight, but she sent her message in by email.
Uh-huh.
And she wanted to know from, I think that the answer is kind of implied by the fact that you set up this publishing company, but she wanted to know whether you believe that this ageism exists in publishing, whether it's, with agents, with editors, with publishers,
Absolutely, it
all the
does.
way through or across the board or, is it in the end, does the work get through? What what is your belief here?
Well, I do believe that agents are looking for young people who they think are going to write 10 books for them. But look, this is the secret sauce here for Sybilline. You get a woman like probably anyone who's sitting here listening in, and not only does she have this book that she's been working on for a while and it's ready to go and she's ready, she's full of passion about it, but she has a file drawer and she has three shoeboxes under her bed with like six other books that are also really good. Well, we want all of those. Let's get you going, and let's get your book out there. And let's get your next book out there. So you will see some of our authors have multiple books, and the best way to sell books is to publish another book. Boom, boom, boom. And you know why that is? Netflix. Because Netflix, people want to watch the whole season, and then they want to watch the whole series, and then they want to watch something else with the same actor in it. Because of that streaming sort of thing, what else is this author written? What else have they got? Well, I'm going to read this one. I'm going to read this one. I'm going to read this one. And then, oh, look, and now she's in the short story collection. I'm going to read that too. They Readers are different than they used to be. They are very much affected by the streaming. So keep writing books. If you finished a book, start another one.
Okay, so something a little bit more personal then. Oh, actually, before we do that, before we move off sibling, so we now know like how you guys got to be sibling, what sibling's all about, what
Right.
proposition you're putting out to authors. Big question, of course, that hasn't gone asked out loud yet is so how first of all, how big is your list? Like how many books do you publish every, let's say every season, and how many submissions do you get? So what kind of proportion are you putting through?
Oh,
Um,
okay. All
and
right.
how do you, and then how do you choose them, Julia? Because that's your job. It's like,
Okay. So when we started in 2022, it took us a year to get all of our systems in place and just get ready to start, doing books. 2023, we put out one, two, three. We put out 6 books in 2023. We put out, I believe it was 12 books in 2024. At the end of 2024, we had so many submissions and we were saying no to so many things that I was like, oh my God, I want that so much. That would be such a fun book to promote. And we vet all of the authors. We talk to them. We're very intimate with them as far as we spend a lot of time together. So we make sure we have a Zoom ahead of time because there are some wacky people out there who are not really fun to work with. And it's good to kind of get that assessment ahead of time that they can be either very needy or they're very sort of helpless, but in a weaponized kind of way. I mean, there's people like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm over 50. I don't know how to use technology. Well, yeah, you do. And you're smart. You can figure it out. So anyway, we had so many books coming in that we started a second imprint. So we have our trade list, which is uh, distributed through Publishers Group West. And those books are hand sold to booksellers in the various districts around the country. And Vicki does a presentation to Publishers Group West, and she does presentations at, Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association, Kaliba, at NAIBA, and New England Booksellers Association. We've got Mountains and Plains. She goes to that. So she goes to those things. We also bring the authors who are local to that, and they do book talks. Fascinating stuff. So all of it's very expensive, by the way. It's like thousands of dollars to get in front of those people. So we take advantage of those opportunities where we can. So we do have dedicated sales reps who are going to booksellers who are also speaking directly with Amazon and Barnes and Noble and some of those other. So we do have that. So, but we found that there were a lot of really good books there. And what if we started a second imprint where we could publish more books? And this way it helps us build our back catalog. So we'll take books that went out of print. So I had like 3 books that had gone out of print I was talking about earlier. And I was like, I would love to have those available again. Let's just, put them into the system, get them edited again. I mean, go through the proofreading, get them laid out, and they're popped up they're on Amazon now as ebooks. So we decided we'd do Sybilline digital first. We're going to do ebooks, and then we have a back catalog. Well, then our authors said, yeah, but I want a paperback book too. So we're like, oh, okay. So that became a whole other step of no, then we have to actually do paper layout. So our Sybilline digital first line is going to be renamed at some point because it's not digital first. It's exactly the same as the other one, except it's distributed a little differently. It's not through PGW, it's through Ingram Spark, and it's through through some of our other opportunities. We are working on getting another audio distributor, for example, because we find that the one that we're using is a little behind the game and they're 3 to 6 months after the book comes out instead of when the book comes out. It gives you a second opportunity to promote, but it's a little vexing when people can't read and they want to hear the audiobook and you have to say, well, it'll be 3 to 6 months. So it's always changing. It's always changing. But so we have 2 lines, and at the moment, we have about 90 books in our catalog and backlist, current and backlist. And what that did, which I didn't, I mean, again, I'm the editor, I'm the writer, I'm on the front of this kind of stuff. This is all back stuff that is not my area of specialty. But Anna said, basically, Anna, the rights and licensing partner, she said, basically, this makes us so much more interesting for rights, for foreign rights, because a company that has 6 books is not as useful and does not have, I mean, there's no catalog. It's, oh, you got 6 books, good for you. Well, now that we have close to 100 and we'll have 120 or 50 by the end of the next year, it'll almost double. It'll
Mm.
be a huge number, and that's much more interesting to someone who wants to, I want to buy large print, do large print out of all of these books. Here you go. So each of your authors gets $500 for that, and now they're all going to be in large print plus royalties on top of that. So increasing the number of books that we accepted made us much more useful out in the field as far as
Mm.
rights and licensing.
Okay.
Again, things that I didn't know as, I got my blue pencil and I'm an editor, right? This is all the publishing stuff that's all taking place back here.
So,
So I think
so,
that's the first 2 of the questions that we were asking.
what is your projected list? Like, how many do you plan to acquire, like, in the coming year, and for both the lists? I am guessing that basically it's
It's
going to
really
be
hard.
smaller.
Yeah, it's really hard to do more than 6, 5 to 6 books on the trade side per season. So that is spring. So that's about every 2 weeks for about 3 months. In there ish, maybe 2 books a month. That's the spring and then the fall. Those there's a lot of work around those because those authors are doing actual full-on tours, they're doing big events, um they have arcs to be distributed. There's just so much more involved with the trade side. The digital first side, which again, as I say, it still has a paperback, it has an ebook, and it will have an audiobook as well. It's just it's a little more passively distributed. It's actually promoted a lot more on Amazon and less in the bookstores. It's a matter of how they're distributed. Um, I would say we will probably continue 6. I think we did 7 this fall, but we only did like 5. It's working out to about 12 books per year in trade, and the math on the other is, I would say, 15, 15 to 18 per season. So 30 to 40 books in digital first.
Right.
You guys are making me do math.
Yeah, 30 to 40 is good enough. So my big question then becomes, yes, there's the difference in distribution. Is there also the difference in what you do for the author? Like, does that digital first book get edited by you and
Everything gets
carefully?
edited. Everything also it gets a developmental edit. It gets a copy edit. It gets a proofread, and that goes back to the author after each one. The author has a chance to look and say, oh no, that's not what I meant. The
Right.
developmental edit, the editor might say, uh, you know, these 2 characters are too much alike. Can you
Right.
do more than just change the color of their hair? They both sound the same.
Are
I mean,
you working with different dev editors then, or I mean, because this is a
absolutely.
big,
And I should say that when we went from one imprint to 2, I had published 2 books, one after the other, and in between I'd had breast cancer. So I was like,
oh,
I cannot edit this many. So I have this title of executive editor, but really I am just sitting here in the acquisitions desk. I'm doing acquisitions. I consider myself the sink strainer, like I keep the good stuff in, I let the bad stuff go, I mean, and it won't even be bad stuff as much as it's a lot of times it's just not for us. For example, we don't publish men right now. We will someday have an imprint for men, but we don't at the moment. So I'm not prejudiced against them. This is a marketing strategy, right?
Hmm.
Women, generally women over 50 own bookstores, women over 50 buy a lot of books. Women over 50 are interested in books by, for, and about women over 50. So as a marketing strategy, in any case, we, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
I was
We,
actually asking because
oh,
of
oh,
the
why I did step back. I stepped back because there were so many, right? There were so many
Mhm.
books coming through, and I could not keep writing, promoting my own stuff, and also battle breast cancer. That's my hair is still growing back. You know what I mean? Just like I could not do all those things at once. And so we got a managing editor who handles all of that. I read everything because I'm the acquisitions person, but we have a someone who does all the developmental editing, and we have a number of contract workers who do editing for us. I mentioned before, we have a couple of authors who weren't able to afford to pay for the marketing co-op, and they have done editing in exchange, for example.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So, so we have some contract workers, and then we have other people who are better at proofreading. And so it goes out to those various people. So your book will be looked at by 2 to 3 different editors along the way. And this is the thing is we only take complete works. We don't accept books that are not finished.
Mhm. Mhm.
I started to say we don't do children's books, we don't do YA. That's a completely different kind of marketing. We don't take how-to books, we don't take self-help, we're not doing business books. So the nonfiction is strictly memoir. And by memoir, I don't mean the whole pizza, I mean a slice of the pizza. I don't want to know your entire life story. I want to know the arc of what this thing is with some kind of epiphany or something that was learned along the way, some kind of narrative arc for a
Okay,
memoir.
this is great. Stop right there.
Okay.
Because I think that what most people in this room will want out like clear in front of them is
Uh-huh.
as an you just said that you're sitting in the acquisitions chair. That's what you do.
This is it. This is
In
where the
the
magic happens.
right. In that seat, a couple of questions specifically for that seat. So
Okay.
you've got all these books coming in. You've
Right.
you've increased the number that you're publishing, but you're still at a maximum at 52 in the course of a year. That's one a week. That's quite a lot for a small press. But still, it's 52, and you might be getting 520 submissions in a week for all I know. So,
It comes and goes with articles and with various press. We'll get it, or after
how
a
do you choose?
conference.
I want to know that as you go through that slush pile, what has to happen for you first? I've heard editors say, I need voice. I've heard some editors say, you said actually yourself that you are drawn to the stories that are about people rather than. So what to you, for an author who wants to be one of those chosen books that chosen by you specifically, what
Right.
do they have, what helps them? What increases their chances of you noticing them in all of this noise?
You know, when you've been doing something for a long time, I mean, this is kind of a thing from when I was a journalist. You can't write a story about parking meter fare increases without talking to people that it affects. The stories always have to be about people. It's not just a bloodless report. There has to be some effect to the community. And that was something I always did as a journalist. And so that's why when I get a story in that is, I want to write about abortion. Abortion is terrible. Abortion is great. Whatever it is, the abortion, the Roe versus Wade thing that has just been repealed and so on. I got like 6 abortion stories where, this this happened and that happened. And I was just like, ugh, I know it's important. I mean, it's for me, I'm a liberal tree hugging, you know what I mean? I'm like as liberal as they come. And I was reading these going, ugh, it's just, and then I got the one that I wanted, which we signed, which is, oh my God, so good. The difference is like cold coffee, milky coffee, watery coffee, and then the best latte you've ever had in your life. Do you know what I mean? There's just something about it. The one that we signed took the Helen of Troy story and made that into the Roe v. Wade repeal story. It is based in Helen of Troy in a slightly future time in the Deep South. And Helen is essentially a Kardashian married to the president. And she runs off with somebody, and he brings the full force of the American military and so Secret Services out to look for her, which is the Helen of Troy story. And there's a child, a young girl trying to get an abortion, and it's all part of it is all the Helen of Troy story, and it is freaking mind blowing how good it is. So the problem is when I go, if I said yes to the first abortion thing that came across my desk, I was like, it's all right, it's all right. Then I went, oh my God. So I have just learned to be patient and really feel like this knocks my socks off. This is amazing. And I mean, really, I mean, just to be real here, the question is, why hasn't one of the big five snapped it up? Why have they not? And I get a lot of these where I'm like, why? Why did not someone offer them $50,000 or $100,000 advance and send the limo? And they haven't. And these beautiful books are sitting, and I'm like, so, I put all of my my retirement fund into helping start the company. And if I lose it, I lose it, right? But for me to have helped these women to share their stories is an amazing thing. So when I get a book like that, I'm like, no one else took it. I'm blown away. We get it, and I'm so happy and excited. And I will bend over backward to make this book the best I can. And if you look at our social media, you'll see us promoting our backlists and books that are alike. And if you like this, you like that. We do everything we can to support and promote these books. So back to acquisitions. People who follow the rules, that will get you in the door. People who say, I haven't finished my novel, but it's about a goat. Are you interested? I'm like, no, finish the novel. Finish the novel. Okay? Finish the novel and send it through the portal on the website like it asked you to, instead of trying to sneak around and find my private email and send it to me. I have a novel. I have a novel. Like, I'm really glad everybody has a novel. Send it through the portal, because then it goes through Asana and I can tick off where it needs to be and it doesn't get lost in the system. We recently had two books that were called, one was called The Badass Widow and one was called The Widow's
That was
Club or
bad,
something
Anna.
like that. They were both really similar, and one of them didn't get into the chart and into the Asana because they were so similar, and one had not come through the portal. And she wrote, and she's like, what's the story with my book? And I was like, ooh, I don't know. Let me look. And I found it, and we ended up signing her too because it was so good. But I was like, you guys got to stick to the portal, because then it goes to all the right departments where it needs to go and it doesn't get lost. So that's one thing. And it's dumb, but it's a thing, because if your novel gets lost, then it won't get read, right?
Mhm. So
Um,
what I'm hearing is follow the rules so your novel doesn't get lost.
I know, and I like to break the rules. So, but
But not
here's the
that
thing:
rule.
is
Make
there's a
sure to
series of questions on the portal. You put in, you say, what's your name? What region of the country are you from? So we know. Oh, okay. Well, this is another book from New England. We have 6 authors there now, so this would be great for the Boston Book Festival. We like to know where you're located so we can figure out how to help market you in that area. If you're in Florida, we have 1 or 2 authors down there. We don't have as much of a presence there, but the more we get, that's great. We would love more authors from Florida, right? It just helps us. So tell us where you're from. Um, brief bio, brief tell me about the book a little bit. So sometimes I get an author will say, all my friends say this is a great book, but I don't know what the book's about.
Mhm.
And chances are I can tell already by your writing in this cover thing. It's like a jot notes or whatever you call it, jot form. You just fill out these couple of squares and cut and paste your bio, cut and paste it's more than your elevator pitch. It's like 3 paragraphs, 2 paragraphs about what your book is, what your book's about. Mystery, romance. We like genre stuff. We like literary stuff. We like all of the genres in fiction
Mhm.
for adults. We don't do children. We don't do young adult,
Right. It
right?
sounds like you do adult fiction plus memoir, right?
Adult fiction and memoir. We don't do photo type books. I mean, we
Right.
can maybe put a couple pictures in there, but they won't be color. I mean, printing in color is kind of a whole different animal. And we also don't particularly want books that are longer than 100,000 words
Right.
because the longer your book is, if it's not in the fantasy genre or some kind of epic, Romans and, Celts fighting, or you know what I mean? There's certain genres where a long book
Mhm.
does really well, but it costs a lot of money to produce. And then the book is, on the back, it says this is $18. This is, slightly less than 1 inch thick, $18. The more expensive that books get, the harder it is to sell them. So an $18 book will sell way better than a $25 book because they're like, I'm paying $25 for that. I mean, it has to be a good book and it has to really want to convince them to pick it up. But that $20 mark, it's like I can whip out a 20, but I have to put out 21. I probably won't buy it, right? There's something about the length. So we prefer something that's closer to 80,000, more than 50, but definitely less than 100. So somewhere in there. So length is a thing. And so here's a little secret, women over 50. We women over 50 are, some of us are Gen X, the top of the Gen X pile, but there's still a lot of boomers among us. And a lot of the boomers, no matter how liberal they say they are, and they were hippies and they follow the Grateful Dead, they still have a lot of unconscious fat phobia, unconscious racism, a lot of things that describing people by the color of their skin by relating them to food, for example. Um, the sensitivity read is something that we do, but it would be good if you are doing people who are different races than you to get a sensitivity reader, and think about uh, how that comes across to people because we don't want to just sell books to people over 50. We want to sell books to everybody. And younger readers are just not having it. If there's fat phobia, body shaming, if you have an older man and a young woman, it's not okay. Um, and we're not doing super graphic sex. We do have sex in our books. That's not a problem, but super, super graphic stuff. We're not doing erotica, for example, or BDSM, any of that stuff. We're not really doing that, but we do like romance. And so in we can't really fetishize someone. You have to be aware, I'll say politically correct or woke for lack of for shorthand. Just be aware of who's going to read your book. And so that's something that I noticed that especially the older our author is, they're like, but I'm a liberal. I'm like, yeah, and you can't describe someone as having colored the coffee colored skin, or you know what I mean? Like nobody wants to be compared to food, so don't do that. Pasty mayonnaise skin. They just people don't like it. What else do I look for?
Okay.
Has this story been told? And how is this story being told? Is it being told differently? Is it being told originally, and so on?
Right.
We're losing people. We're losing them.
Well, I'm going to actually swap the mic over and let them ask their own questions, seeing as they've got so many popping into the chat. So,
Right.
if you have a question, everybody, and even if you've typed it in, put your hand up and we'll go through some questions now so you can ask Julia directly.
Yeah, I can't see everybody, so maybe you should call on them.
Well, usually they put their little raise hand thing up, but right now I'm not getting anybody.
Okay, let's look
Well, and yes, let's
in
read.
the chat. Someone asked about children's books.
Yeah, I think we've
Yeah, I
answered
think I did
that.
that.
The billboard you answered as well.
Yeah, it's hard to it makes really nice social media. It's just hard to say if it works or not. I don't know. Sometimes I'll see something and I'll go, I'm gonna find that book. But I don't know what's going on in other people's heads. I just know how I am. Let me
So,
look at Monica's question
yeah,
here.
that is a good question because we didn't actually talk about agents. So,
We'll take an agented book or unagented book, either way.
you
When
can,
we work with the agent usually sits in on all the meetings and might have there may be, the agent may want to keep some of the rights and try to do the film rights themselves. And usually what we do is whoever sells them first gets them. Kind of, we're not gonna say don't do that, because that's usually where the agent makes their money too.
right,
But if they, for example, you may hear out in the world that you should keep all your rights, but if you don't have a way to sell them, if you don't have contacts, it doesn't make sense for you to keep them. And we've had authors say, well, I want my rights back after a year. Sometimes it takes 2 years. I mean, what's just coming out right now is Hamnet, and Hamnet the book has been out for like 15 years. That's not a new book. Um, and look at all the stuff with Wicked. I mean, that book came out not in the 90s, like the late 80s or 90s. I mean, sometimes it takes a little while for stuff to go. So, unless your brother or your sister or your uncle or whatever is a screenwriter and has all the connections, it doesn't make sense for you to sit on your rights. And it may end up being a deal breaker for us. And we have had people, where they're just like, no, I want to keep my rights.
mhm, mhm.
You're an unknown person. We're going to do our best to sell your book, but it would help if we had more of it in our arsenal, right? So it's for sometimes it's just a deal breaker and people say, and it doesn't work out.
Okay,
Um,
so let's go to Dorothy. I'm going to pin her as well. Dorothy, you have a question?
is
Actually,
there,
I think I'm going to cheat and throw two questions out there for you. First,
Okay.
Julia, thank you so much for
Dorothy, please
coming.
don't cheat. Just do one question and then get in the
I'm
back
a
of the
cheater.
line.
What can I
No,
say?
no, no, I'm going to shut you off. So one question and then we'll probably have time for you to do another one, but it won't be fair if we have to cut off.
Okay, so I guess my biggest question is, what would be the top three reasons you would toss something aside and say, not for me? I mean,
if it's not well
obviously
written, you
not
know,
well written. What does
sure.
that mean? Are
Um,
you
you know, uh, not writerly.
okay?
I mean, it's okay if it's not full of poetic language. That's not the issue. If you have kind of cardboard characters and it's they make a lot of noise, they crash and they slam and they do everything with an adverb and they're cartoonish and uh bad writing when you see it. And so I will tell you, let me tell you just a quick little story. I had a woman submit she's not in here, a woman who submitted a story called My Life. It's a memoir called My Life as a Phlebotomist. And first of all, I don't want a life story. I do want a memoir which has got a narrative arc. And the first chapter was pretty much like a scene out of ER. It was very technical language and lots of spurting blood, right? And I was like, ugh. And it just felt the depth wasn't there. This is a first time writer, and so it was pretty early out the gate for her, and I just didn't feel like her skill set was there. Um, if you've ever sat in any kind of writing workshop, I mean, you know who can write and who can't write. And if you have read books, you know what good writing is like. And so I do get stuff in, and this particular woman, she actually sent me a second manuscript about a week in. And sometimes I have had people say, you know what, I sent you the wrong one, or this one's actually better, do this. I hadn't started reading it yet. I'd only kind of glanced at it. I said, that's fine, send it in. Over the weekend, it was like 4 days later, she sent me another version of it. And she said, I no, this one's even better. You should read this version. And I said, you know what? Why don't you take this, what I had looked at was like, eek, take this and go put it in the drawer for 6 months and then work on it some more and then submit it because clearly you are not ready to submit it, right? And then she wrote back a screaming screed about how I'm a terrible person because I wouldn't read her manuscripts. Those authors, and there are many of them because they're not experienced, so they're deciding, I'm going to write a book. Like I'm saying, I'm going to be a pro ball player. You know what I mean? Kind of out of the blue, I'm going to write a book. They don't have the skills. Not saying they won't learn them, but there's a long path of take classes, do workshops, do lots of reading, and it is very clear when they have not done that. So, uh, so that's one thing. It's not writerly. Another thing is sometimes I have said I do lots of R&Rs where I revise and resubmit. I say, you know what? I really like what you're doing here, but I feel like the story doesn't start till page 70. So I suggest you chop off that and just keep going because, I'm here for it. I'm here to find out what happens. But this whole long meandering beginning is just death. I can't get a book like that sold. Nobody's going to pick it up in the bookstore and, choke their way through that. So sometimes it's just, I mean, I don't know if you guys learned this in, your MFA or in a poetry workshop, but if you chop off that first stanza and the last stanza, you have a real poem there. The beginning is throat clearing and the end is just you're running out of gas. It's the same in your manuscript. So in medias res, baby, open the page and the story is happening. What is your first line? What is your first paragraph? What is this story about? Tell me. Don't like make me like, hack with my machete through the right through the jungle. So there's that. Um, and then here's another thing is we do get, Granny who's 99 years old and has sent me a typed thing. I have a manuscript and it's under 10,000 words and my son says it's good. And I'm like, uh, I'm not going to type your story. I mean, it has to come to me digitally, right? I just don't have time. I just don't have time. So we do get the outer edges of my life story. Like go down to Kinko's and have them printed out for your family. That's who that belongs to. It's not going to sell. And I'm not going to take your money. We're not going to take your money to market something that's not going to sell. It has to have a story, right? Um, if we just published a book like that, I mean, there's only so many unicorn stories you can publish. You publish a unicorn story, but you can't publish 10 unicorn stories. We just took a sobriety memoir. Chances are we're not going to do another sobriety memoir. We have this great book about the abortion thing I was telling you about. It's impeccable. No notes. I'm not going to take another one of those. We get a lot of, my husband has Alzheimer's. I survived a terrible disease. My kid is autistic. I mean, everyone's got a story, but I don't know if everyone's story is writerly enough and compelling enough that I mean, there's a lot that goes into getting a book out to the public and doing the song and dance to get it out there. And it's a lot on you, the author, and it's a lot on all of us trying to support that. And we have to be like, we all have to be in on it. We have to be all in. And when I send people their rejection notes, it's because we just could not all agree that this was a book we all wanted to support. So does that help?
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Get in the back of the line and we'll
Get in the line.
Monica, you have the next question.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
coming. Um, Thanks, Shirin, for having these. I love coming to these. Um, so what I want to know is, okay, let's say I submit a book and it gets past you as the gatekeeper, and we start talking about, you know, what you guys are going to do for me as an author to get my book out. Who do
Right.
I get to talk to? Because there are a couple places during this you've said, well, I can't really give you details about that. At that point where you're really serious, and I don't know, you're only taking 6 books. I assume you talk seriously with more than 6 people before you get to that point of choosing. So I'm just wondering, at what point do we as authors get to talk with different parts of the partnership who can tell us how it really works to
So let me give
publish
you
it?
basically the timeline. You submit something, and within a few days, I personally will reach out to the submitter and
Mhm.
say, "Hey, I got your manuscript. This is not like an AI thing or an automatic email. It's me saying, "Hey, I got your manuscript. I want you to know that it's, on my desk, not literally like a pile of paper because I don't print things out, but your PDF arrived. It's in my hands, and we'll be taking a look at it." If it's something that I already know that we're not going to do, like you want to do a board book or a picture book, I will say, it's not something we're doing. Nice talking with you. Or I could say, if it's a memoir, usually I'm telling people with memoirs, just so you know, right now, memoirs are not selling well. I just want you to know that up front. And it has to be spectacular right now for us to want to take it because they're not selling. So I'm not gonna be like, we'll just take their money and screw them. And we don't do that. I really, really want a book that's going to sell. So we are looking for something that is going to rise above that. Currently, memoirs are not doing well in bookstores with big publishers, small publishers, online, wherever. So sometimes I will pop a little note with that, but I will basically say your book arrived with me, and it'll take us 6 to 8 weeks to get back to you. Usually 6 to 8 weeks we will get back to you. Sometimes it stretches into the 3 month, right? And usually it's because we can't decide. If it's a no, you usually get a no pretty fast, but not immediately, because you know what? That really hurts. If I look at it and I go, oh, hell no, um, and I immediately go back, this is not for us. It really upsets the author, and it should, because I've had that happen too. I'm like, you didn't even look at it. So I take time to weigh it and really go, this might not be my favorite kind of book. Let me make sure someone else reads it. I mean, it's like I don't just slam the door automatically. We take a look at everything as long as it's written, fairly decent quality. The author has said, I'm willing to do some support of this book. I'm willing to help promote it. And, I have really good connections in Seattle or wherever it is. I mean, they kind of shared their willingness. And so first of all, I read the beginning. I'll look at that first chapter. I'll read 30 pages. I keep track of it. I kind of get an idea what the book is about. And then I have some other readers, and I'll have other readers look at those first 30 pages. And if we can't get past that 30th page, then it's a decision of, is this book just not ready yet? Does it need another round? Or is this book it's just not right? Sometimes the story's just, there's just not, it just isn't working. And that's when you put it away and go work on something else. Um, or is this just a book that's impossible? We get a lot of books about father-daughter molesting, and there's a certain graphic quality to them that we just are not publishing. We're just not going to do that. Partly because it is traumatic for your editors to read that stuff over and over. It is traumatic. It is like harmful. It's harmful for you, the author who's written it, but it's harmful for us. And so we have just chosen that that's not something we're not going to write. publish abuse type stuff. That being said, there are different ways to go about it, and that we've done a couple of things that have that in it. At the 30-page mark, if I can't put it down, I just keep reading. I read them on my Kindle. I read them in bed. I'll take my Kindle with me. And I usually am texting Vicky, the publisher, and saying, "Oh my God, this is so funny. Oh, I can't stop." Or I'm crying. I love this so much. It's so good. It's so good. And before you know it, I'll say, "You've got to send her a message." And so she'll send out an email and say, "We love the book. We really want to get together and meet with you." So we'll set up a Zoom meeting and we'll talk for an hour about all of the different things and explain to you, this is how this is how we do it. If you come with us, you're putting in a co-op for this, and this is our publishing program. These are all the things we do. You're going to learn a lot about the publishing world. You're going to learn how licensing and rights works. When Anna's going to do a Zoom with all of the authors in this season, and we're going to learn it together. We're going to talk about how do you address a book in a bookstore? How do you what is the marketing all about? You'll have a one-on-one meeting about your marketing. We'll have a meeting about what do you think your cover should look like. Now, a lot of big publishers will be like, "This is what your cover is. You don't like it? Too bad." But we work with the author and say, what are some things you like? Do you like the woman standing with her back to like this? Do you like the woman standing with her back to the thing? It's kind of a cliche, but this is a funny book. And so we did it intentionally. But here's another one. We'll talk about the art. This book did not come together. The cover, we had to do several because it was green before, and green was just weird. And we were trying to do something with these pictures. And then I found this art on Etsy. And when I found that piece of art on Etsy, it changed everything. And this cover turned out to be beautiful.
Can I just ask a
Yeah.
little follow-up here? So we've gone from,
Monica, this is not another question, is it? Because you're
oh,
going to
no, it's
get
just to
trouble
clarify.
with Dorothy. It is.
It's a clarifying question because I'm having trouble understanding how so we got to the end of the book, 30 pages, loved it. So I don't know how many books you get through that way. So if there are 100 books like that, you don't do all that with 100 authors, do you?
I have read everything. Yeah, I do. I do read. I don't read the whole
No,
thing
no, but
unless
I mean, you don't sit down and talk about everything and explain licensing,
with them,
marketing.
no. Only if if we want to extend a contract to them. Yes, we absolutely do meet with every single author. We do. We do.
Okay.
I don't read and some books I'll read all the way to the end and still not sure. I'll make sure another reader has read it. Sometimes we get to the end and they'll say, "Oh, I just got another publisher. Oh, I have an agent." So I'll read it and I'll be like, "Did I nab it? I read that whole thing for nothing." But it was a really good book. So I didn't, it was all right. Um, but yeah, but I don't know what all your careers are and what things are, but they're, if you're an accountant, you can see the wrong number. You can see like that's not right, and you can see it because you're used to doing it, or you can look at someone's knitting and say, "Oh, you slipped a stitch there." When you become competent in something, you can look at it and say, "Yeah, not for me," or "Yeah, I don't think this one will sell." You just get a sense of it. You get the doctor's ability to diagnose. And so I might like the book, but I don't think it'll sell. Or, I think it'll sell really well, even if I hate it. You know what I mean? It's like there's different places, there's different ends of the spectrum there, but usually we really like to love a book and to not be able, just be excited that we're going to publish this book.
Okay,
And
we only
it
have a
being
couple
passionate.
minutes left, so
Okay,
Monica,
sorry.
did
Thank you
you
very
get
much.
your
I
answer?
hope that
Okay, good.
helps. I hope that's helpful.
That's helpful.
All right, so Jane, you've got your, oops, hang on, let me get Monica down first.
Everybody gotta go. Cozy mysteries we love. That's one of the questions. M. Vaughn, love cozies.
And Jane, quickly, I think
Yes,
you have the last question of the evening.
yeah. From what I've hear you saying, that I would describe your publishing model as collaborative. That you work
Yes,
a lot with authors,
very
one
much.
on if you want to publish the work.
Yes.
So collaborative publishing.
Collaborative publishing absolutely is what we are.
Got a question, Jane, or are you suggesting a title change?
No, that's what it is. We're not hybrid. We're not, and because we're not trying to, the author is not our source of income. We're trying to sell books, but we do it collaboratively. We try to, Vicky will explain in our meetings, she'll say, we've got a backpack and you've got a backpack, and we'll climb up the mountain together. We're going to do it together. We're going to support you and we'll support each other. And the other thing that happens is the other female authors, the other women authors who publish with us are incredibly supportive. So there's this whole circle of women who will be surrounding you and upholding you
Yeah.
through the process, who are kind of big sisters to you. It's turned out really well. So Jane, I'm not quite sure though, what is your question?
That my question was that do you consider yourself a collaborator with authors that you take on?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
indeed.
really was my question. That's kind of unusual in the publishing world, in my
It
experience.
is pretty unusual. And we're all professionals at it, but we
Yeah,
like working with women, and we prefer to do it in a matriarchal way rather than a patriarchal way, where we love and support each other instead of, compete and go at
Yeah.
each other with knives when they leave the room or what have you, whatever they do.
Thanks,
yes.
Jane. I'm sorry I'm hurrying everyone along so that we can get also Margaret's question in.
Okay, go for it.
Margaret.
Yeah, I had a question. I saw on your website, and then you mentioned the beginning of it about the upfront $3,000 author contribution for marketing. And
Right.
then it talks on your website that there's also a monthly marketing contribution. And I'm curious what that ends up totaling over time. You had thrown out a
So
number of 3,000, and then you said sometimes it might be 7,500. I didn't know if that's what we're talking about.
yeah, let me just to clarify that before our time ends. So I think the website should be updated. What the website is trying to say is that you can spread the payment out over time. You don't have to pay it all in one chunk. That's what it's saying. It's not saying you have to, pay forever, or you have to pay $3,000 a month forever. Um, Different books have different co-op payments.
Hmm.
So the bookstore trade line, um, our regular bookstore seasons that we only do about 6 or 7 per season, those have a co-op payment of $15,000, which I know is a lot, but it's also exactly what I had to pay for a publicist 10 years ago. So it's, as far as what do you call it, inflation goes, it's actually not that much. Second of all, our Sybilline Digital First line, which, as I say, we are going to be changing the name of that because it is print as well as ebook as well as audio, so it's not just digital first. That co-op payment is $7,500. Any of these, we do ask you like a deposit of 3,000, because then we can already get started on some of the pre-marketing, and then you pay the rest as you can. If that means it's $500 a month, $1,000 a month, you get a discount if you pay it all in advance. That's the money side, which is Vicky's department. I'm not sitting out here with my little tin cup asking you for that. Again, I'm in the acquisitions department, but I sit in enough of these meetings that I know how it works. And and I know what happens. When we had a lower co-op, we were not able to buy the Amazon ads and the other things that actually helped make books succeed. So we did have to raise it so that we were able to really afford the things that made a book successful.
And
That
then,
helps.
I think you said something. I wanted to make sure I heard it properly. That author royalties are 50% until you called it a load, which was the matching amount
Yeah,
from Sybilline.
right.
And once that's uh, kind of paid
Returned. Yeah.
off, then the royalties. So they're 50% until then, and then what happens after that? You threw out a couple numbers. I wasn't sure about that.
The industry standard, I think, is about 12%. And it's less if you have it's less in your pocket if you have an agent, because you're going to split that with your agent. They usually take 15% of whatever you get, or it may be whatever your arrangement is. But it's 12, I believe it's 12%.
12 on a paperback is pretty standard right now.
Yeah, and then if you say after you've
So
sold
that would be
75,
like trade paper you're talking about.
I'm talking across the board.
Okay.
It's everything
Okay.
is 50% until you've paid back this co-op money that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Really, it's just an advance, it's an advance to yourself on the marketing. And then you don't, you've got help with your social media, you've got training, I mean, all this kind of stuff that's part of it. The standard, I think, like I said, is 12%. And then if you sell more books after you've gone over 7,500 sales, I think it goes to 15%. Again, this is the contract side of things, which is not my area, but it's generally about that.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's pretty standard across the industry. And again, as I say, we are trying to, with Sybilline, trying to figure out ways to not have to play by those same rules. That's why we're saying, why don't you contribute and we'll do this together and see if we can take the mountain, see if we can get to the top of the mountain.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
M. Vogue said, publish cozy mysteries. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We have
We're looking
1
forward to it.
minute. So
1
Dorothy,
minute.
did you have that last question? This is your last chance.
I think she already covered it, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Julia.
Woohoo!
Welcome. Hey, find me on social media. Find
Mhm.
Sybilline on social media. Just see what we do. We're on all platforms. We're on all of them, including TikTok and LinkedIn.
And also, I'll say a good way to know what an editor likes is to read what an editor writes. And Julia has a new book that only came out 4 days ago.
It just
Wow.
came out.
So,
So,
Nelly.
poor Nelly, if you like the Little House books, this is kind of Laura Ingalls Wilder for grown-ups. It has one very spicy chapter, but other than that, it's a librarian's deep dive into the Little House books as a way of escaping childhood trauma. So kind of dark academia with a spicy chapter.
well,
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck with that, the best of luck with Sybilline. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us.
Thanks. I hope that didn't just confuse you more.
No, I don't think it did, and I think you're going to have a lot of response through your.
Oh, hallelujah. I love it. Send me some good stuff. Except not about being a phlebotomist.
When I was a publisher, I was a publisher of children's books, and I had a woman submit her life as a pole dancer. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that means you're a phlebotomist.
Oh my God.
On that note, everyone.
Right. I have had a 12-year-old boy send me his fantasy, his epic fantasy of 100,000 words. I'm like, yeah, okay. Anyway, thanks everyone. Very much appreciate it. You mentioned that you sat in on this. If you send something in to me, let me know so I can sort of keep track of what my influence in the world.
All right.
Such as it is.
Thanks so much.